Hi Facebook, my name is Yolandi Latham. I'm glad that you're here to watch again for part 2 of Love, Life, and Dementia. So this week has been a very challenging week for many reasons. There's a lot going on at work, just personally, just a lot of stuff happening. And I just wanted to talk about how we can work on ourselves to get rid of the disorders that live deep within us. So when I say disorders, I mean there's physical disorders and then there's mental disorders. Physical disorders are like, you were born with no legs or no arms, or you can't see, things like this, those are your physical disorders. And what I'd like to say, one thing about people who have physical disorders, they most often are very keen or very strong in other areas. So if the pieces of themselves that they may not have, like they might not have their sight or they cannot speak, their senses are enhanced. We have 5 senses. And when one is gone, all the rest seem to go into high gear. That's how the body compensates for itself. And when it comes to disorders of the mind, that's a whole different ballgame. Personally, I think it's easier to deal with a physical ailment because it's something that you just don't have, and you have to really learn how to operate and how to work differently in order to do the things that you want. Like there's people who are out there who don't have legs, but they can drive. They wear prosthetics. Life goes on and they're living their lives, and their lives are full and rich. But the disorders that I'm talking about today are the disorders of the mind. The ones that keep us from being our true self. Those are the ones that I'm talking to you about today. So the first thing what you need to do when you have a disorder of the mind, and there are many. Disorders of the mind could be messages that you tell yourself. Maybe you're always fighting yourself because you feel that you're not attractive enough, or you say maybe, I'm never going to find anybody because there's no good men out there. You tell yourself these things and then you become stuck with those things, and it becomes a part of who you are. It becomes one of your disorders. And believe me, I have a lot of friends who are very successful in many different ways, and they find it very difficult to find somebody. But they keep on saying things like there are no good people out there, and they get comfortable. They get comfortable living alone. They get accustomed to being on their own. They get accustomed to being in their own space. They tell themselves that they don't need anybody. But guess what? At the end of the day, I believe that most people do want to have someone special to share their life with, to grow old with, to argue with, to fuss about. Everybody wants that one person. But if you continually tell yourself that there's nobody out there, then guess what? You'll probably never really find anybody who's worth it. So you got to really change. You have to change your outlook. Instead of looking at everything as being the glass as half empty, as they would say, you need to look at it as half full. Look at the possibilities, and that comes with changing the way that you perceive your life. I'm not saying that this is easy. I think changing your perception of yourself is one of the hardest things that any of us could ever try to do, because from the time that you're born and you're put on this earth, you start to perceive who you are. So the world will tell you who you are. Your mother will tell you who you are. The treatment that you receive from your father, your sisters, the work world, when you go out into the world and you get your first job, or you get your first degree. All of these things is what shape us to know who we are, or to identify with who we are. And when negative things happen, you can have a million positive things happen, but one negative or a few negative things can make such a large impact on your life that it can change you forever. I'm hoping that this hasn't turned off. Let me see. Zeta? In any case, I don't see the camera going. Is it working still, Zeta? Am I still on? Zeta? Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, guys. I'm just having some technical difficulties. I don't really get this stuff too well. So, anyways, as I was saying, your self-perception can really hinder you in life. When you look at people who are very, very positive about their outlook on life and they think that they're the shit, you know, you have those people like Beyonce. I've come across women in my life that you watch them walk into a room and they just own it. And that's because they're perceiving themselves as great. And it really, really makes a real big difference. It's everything. Your self-perception is everything. I'm going to give you an example. I was working for a company and I felt like I was doing the most. And I was very grateful for the experiences that I had gained from being at that company. But it came a time when I said, you know what, I'm too smart for this and I need to move on because I know that I'm worth a whole lot more than what I'm getting here. And I started to think of myself in a much bigger light. I started seeing myself, you know what, I'm only going to accept jobs that put me in this category of money. And if it's below this, I don't want it. I went out for job interviews and I would basically say, you know what, I'm already making this money. So I willed myself and I told myself, I picked a number in my mind and I said, you know what, I'm not accepting any job unless it is how much dollars. And I told myself in my mind and I stuck with a number and I said, if anybody ever asks me, what is my salary? This is a number I'm given. And wherever I go will have to match that or be better than that. And guess what? I was able to jump my salary, I think it was almost by at least $40,000. And that was just because I believed and I set in my mind that this is where I'm going to be. This is the number that I want. This is what I feel I deserve, and I'm going to get this. And that's exactly what happened. And it really, really made me open my eyes. I said, man, if I could sit down and I told myself and I lied to myself basically and willed myself to getting a salary that I don't think I would have ever achieved if I didn't think that way, then there's so much other things that I could do. For example, like even being in control of my weight. I've been always telling myself, you know, I want to lose weight. I want to get my body in order. And I'm always trying this and I'm trying that. But I'm not really fully committing. And I would feel kind of like what is that word? Like a hypocrite. Because I am in healthcare and I'm always telling everybody about what they need to do to be healthy and how they need to eat and disease prevention and all these other good things, but I'm not walking the walk. I'm not doing it. So I listened to someone, there's different people, YouTubers and other people that I follow. And this one person says, if you can learn to start to make small commitments to your own self, then you can actually start things moving in the right direction. And that's what I did. And by making those small commitments and really trying to force myself to commit to my own self, that's how I was able to start moving my weight in a positive direction, changing the way that I eat, and really feeling like, you know what, if I make these small steps, I can actually get some control. And it has a way of boosting you in a sense, because if you can do this small thing, then you can plan to do something bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So back to this disorders of the mind. Those are the hardest ones to deal with because they create barriers in our life. You know, there's people who might have grown up with a father who was abusive or who was an alcoholic. and your way of dealing with it was just always trying to stay under the radar. You didn't want to make any noise. You wanted to stay quiet. You never really stood up for yourself, even though you knew that things were wrong. You never voiced your opinions. You always put up with this. In order to get rid of this disorder of always holding back, you have to first recognize that it is a disorder. You have to look at how you've become comfortable with being that quiet voice. That quiet voice that you had when you were 8 years old, and now you're 38 years old, and you still have that quiet voice. You're still that person who maybe now you're in a marriage that might not be working, and you don't like the things that are happening in your home. Maybe your husband is not present enough, or he doesn't pay you enough attention, or he's not pulling his weight in the household, and you're too afraid to stand up for yourself. It could manifest itself at work, where you have a boss who's a complete asshole. You hate your boss, but you're not willing to stand up and face the issues that are happening at work. You're working with someone who you don't particularly like. Instead of approaching that person and having that conversation to kind of clear the air so that you can work and be productive, you stay quiet and you mumble to yourself. This is a manifestation of what happens because when you were a child, you never stood up for yourself. You always kind of laid low, tried to like hide behind things, keep things quiet. We need to just get rid of that stuff. These are disorders that happened a long time ago and we carry them. There's children who carry things that happened from 8 years old and they're now 50. I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen it in men. I've seen it in women who are manifesting problems that happened from childhood. Maybe they feel that their mother didn't love them enough. You'll see it. And you'll see it when it comes up in conversation. It could be random conversation where somebody's talking about their mother and then they'll just get on a topic and you can see like a face change happen. We need to learn to get rid of these disorders because they prevent us from living our true self. Life is really short, and if there's one thing that I can tell you and that I've really come to really own, and I think this happened a couple years ago when I almost forgot how old I was. My daughter said to me, "Mommy, I think you're I'm not gonna say my number. Okay, you guys can guess how old I am. Those of you who know how old I am, then you know this. But if you don't, I'm not gonna say my number." But she said, "Mommy, you're such and such years old." And I said, "I am?" And I realized to myself, you know what? I don't have time to waste. I have absolutely no time to waste anymore. And I made a conscious decision at that time that I need to really start living and doing the things that I want to do now. And if there's things that are happening in my life that I don't like, I'm not going to sit and be quiet. And that goes for my personal life. That goes for my work life. It goes for all facets of my life. Things have to be real. And if it's not real, Landy is not involved in it. I don't want it. I don't want things that are fake. I don't want things that are on the surface. If it's not real, I don't want it. So you have to think to yourself, what are your deep down disorders? You need to identify them, number one. You need to really know what they are. And then you need to listen to your language, the words that you use. I'll never find a man. There's nobody out there good enough for me. All the men out there are trash. I'm better off living by myself because I don't want no problems. When you tell yourself these things, guess what? You're going to end up by yourself. And that's exactly what you don't really want. So when you put those words out there, be careful how you speak to your girlfriends, but be careful about how you write but be careful in what you write to yourself, you know, like journaling and things like this. Remember, they say when you speak, first of all, it starts in the mind, and the mind is very powerful. And when you use your mind and then it creates words that come out and you put those words out into the world, the universe is listening. And I don't care if you believe in God, if you believe in Allah, Jehovah, whatever you want to call him, there is a spirit and there is a strength in this universe that listens to the things that we say, and you need to be very mindful about what you say. I see you, Penella. I'm not saying it. You really need to be careful about what you put out of your mouth, because your words, when you speak the words become powerful, because like I said, the universe is listening to whatever you say. I mean, you'll see it, and it happens all the time. You start speaking things, and the more you speak on it, you'll see it. If you keep on speaking negative things all the time about your life and about things not working for you, then guess what? They probably aren't going to work for you. You need to try and speak good things. And if you don't have anything good to say, as your mother says, if you don't have nothing good to say about somebody, just shut your mouth. Don't say nothing. Try and keep it in here and try and change your program. You need to change that. So the first thing you need to do is recognize what your disorder is. And second of all, you have to be careful. First of all, you have to know what your disorder is. Second of all, be aware of the language that you use. And you have to be careful about what you put out. Penella, I love your point. Be careful of what you put out into the universe, because you might not want it back. And sometimes, we have wishes and we have dreams and things that we want to accomplish. Put it out there. Say what you have to say. Practice what you preach. Absolutely. You need to be about what you say. So not just saying it, but you have to believe it, and then you have to do it. It's the three things that come together that will really make action and create change in your life. Those things are very, very important. Okay, so this is something that I just wanted to share with you, that the disorders that we all have, and many of us have many, I have many. I am far from perfect. I am very complicated, but I'm trying, and I'm working on myself, and I'm trying to fix the things that I don't particularly like about myself, and recognizing that I do have the power to change certain things about myself. And I think as I become older, I become more aware that I do have the power to be in control of myself, and looking into the universe and latching on to the power of the beings that control what we have here. It makes it all the more possible. Okay, so this is all I'd like to share with you this Friday afternoon. I hope all of you are having or looking forward to having a good weekend. I certainly am. My weekend began on Friday, and I'm looking forward to have a very nice weekend, probably cleaning the backyard and doing some shopping and stuff like that. And that's it for now. Oh, and one other thing I'd like to share with you. Today I found out that on WB11, my favorite newscaster is no longer there. Miss Suki is no longer there. I almost died. I wanted to cry today because I went on. I haven't seen her in like a month, and I thought she was on vacation. So for those of you who are joining me from Toronto or anywhere else, Sukanya Krishna, she's on WB11 News, Pix 11 News in the mornings, and I get up in the morning and I usually watch her every morning, and I haven't seen her for a while, and I said, oh, she's on vacation, she'll be back, because she's been there for the last 17 years. And today I checked online, so I picked up my phone because I'm seeing all these random people on my favorite show, and I'm wondering, who are these people? Just to find out that she's no longer there. I was very disappointed. Suki, we want you back. For those of you who know Suki, let's start a campaign or something to get her back, because she was just wonderful. In any case, thank you for joining me for today on Love, Life, and Dementia, and I will see you next Friday. Don't let your disorders define you. Bye for now.